All right, so I've had my Makita chainsaw for officially for 1 year, so I figured it was about time that I did an update on that. So here you go. All right, just hit a piece of log. It's not that long. It's probably about 10 feet. I just had to carry 2 pieces of it up to the trailer because this thing is an absolute piece of shit. I would absolutely not recommend that to anyone. I might just throw it in the river while I'm down here. It took me 6 batteries to cut halfway through a couple of pieces of maple. What a piece of garbage. So yeah, Makita and your double battery, that's a piece of shit. I would never get that. It was like $400. And I just can't begin to tell you how much of a piece of junk that thing is. It cycles out. If you undercut it all, it starts doing this flashing battery thing. It cuts out. It doesn't like to overcut that much either because all of a sudden it gets into this mode where it thinks it's overheating. Now I'm just setting the saw down. I'm not even pushing. I was using one hand at one point trying to cut through this maple. This is not a massive piece of maple. I came down here with my little Ryobi and I cut better than that. So now I'm pretty much exhausted because I've had to carry these big pieces up that hill. And yeah, Makita, that's a hunk of garbage. Your battery life is trash. Do better. Now I'm not asking for a logger saw. I'm not a logger. Just a little bit of crappy firewood once in a while. That's all I'm asking. These are not massive pieces. That thing should have been able to cut right through that stuff. This kept blinking and it shut the saw off. Then that started blinking. The only way you can get it to restart is to pull the battery off because it's telling you that it's getting hot. Then you put it back in, turn the saw back on again, and then theoretically it should go, but it literally would cut maybe an inch and then it would die again. You have to reset it, cut an inch, die again, cut an inch, die again. Absolutely terrible. Batteries are dead now, but this was going through 6 batteries, 6 sets of batteries. This could not power through this as well as my 10-inch Ryobi, which barely fits across this thing. I don't get it. There were so many electric nannies in this thing that it just renders it completely useless. With the 2 batteries in there, that should be able to burn all the way through stuff, pretty much like a gas-powered saw. They hobbled the living shit out of this thing. It just, I don't know. I don't understand why they would make it such a piece of trash. You know, if you're worried about the battery protection, then let the batteries cut out when they're ready to go. But these batteries weren't even down to the first bar. I mean, that one is now because I thrashed this thing within an inch of its life the last shot out because all I had to do was get through that last piece. How you doing, buddy, Rob? Ted's a little bit upset because it took me an hour to do what maybe amounted to possibly 15 minutes worth of work, absolute maximum. I was committed at a certain point. I just had to get it done. But it's like, I can't pull a pull start. My shoulders are shot. I can lift stuff, but the snapback action. So like if I could find a gas saw that was electric start, I could do that. You know, I wanted to like the electric saw, and it certainly cost enough. It was over $400 for that thing. So yeah, that's my foray into electric saws, and I'm not super happy about it. At least not the real ones. Like I said, for a living saw, I can't say enough about the Ryobis. The Ryobis, I think I paid $1.25 for my most expensive one, $89 for the cheapest one. $89 one's still running. The one that was like $1.25, that one eventually croaked because I abused that one. I put a bigger bar on it. Yeah, I did lots of stuff to that saw that it owed me nothing. But I replaced the motor for $18, and that thing was back on its way again. Makita, yeah, not so much. All right, so when I first got this thing, let's see here if I can show you the model number on it. XCU04, 36 volt, because it uses 2 of your batteries. When I first got this thing, I tried to like it, and I thought that maybe I was just expecting too much from it, because like the first tree that I cut was just a little small thing, and it wouldn't undercut at all. It would start getting into this jumpy blade thing, which I don't know what that deal was. So you had to make sure that if it even sensed that it was near something, it would get into the computer lockdown and it would not undercut. So you had to start the saw well under the wood. Like even if it felt, I don't know, anything. If it had the memory of a tree that was nearby, it would not undercut. If you started it and you started going into a pre-existing cut, if it felt too much resistance at all, any kind of bind, it would cut right off. And I'm not talking jumping out of the tree kind of bind. I'm just talking like a little bit of the cambium, the bark, just starting to come in. Cambii, whatever the hell it is. If anything was touching at all, it would just cut right out completely. And then it would start giving you flashes, and you would have to restart the saw again. So, yeah, I was pretty disappointed with that. There's way too much computer action going on in here. There was more snot left to these batteries. So we're definitely not getting the full capacity out of these guys. These are two 5-amp-hour batteries. Like I said, that one this was pretty much at the end of the run. I'm gonna see what these other batteries look like now. Come on, get out of here, fellas. This one's pretty hot, so I know I use this one up pretty good. That's down to 1. This one's pretty hot. That's down to 1. That's 3. That one's not even hot, but these cut out anyways. And that's 2. So that was the saw cutting out when these guys went. It didn't cut out when these guys went. These guys are physically warm. The saw itself was still running. So like if you ran it, it would run all day just sitting there with absolutely no resistance against it. It's got plenty of oil in it. There's absolutely no reason for this not to have still been operating. So yeah, super disappointed in this. I can't say enough about how mad I am about this, because this little piece of crap right here, and I say that lovingly, it outcuts that thing. It won't outlength it, obviously, because this is only a 10-inch bar. But I did get it to outlength it at one point. I put an 18-inch bar on this thing just for the hell of it, just to see it would do it. It did it. I cut through 18-inch material with it in one shot. But then that was just too much for this. This is not a brushless engine, so that was asking an awful lot about it. This was still under warranty. But I fixed it instead because I thought that was a little above and beyond what anything Ryobi would recommend that you do with that. Because that was really, you're not supposed to practically double the size of the bar. This is a limbing saw. That's all that should be done with this. But I cut through that same wood back there. I cut through that. I had to go through opposite sides of it because it wasn't quite long enough to bridge the gap. And I was able to cut 4 pieces with this little monster. This guy did it. That guy wouldn't. That thing stopped after 4 cuts. Not even all the way through. Just 4 slices. I couldn't even actually cut all the way through there. That's why I had to use so many batteries on it. This one here, I cut 4 pieces. Then the battery finally went. So these are the batteries. I'm on to the newer for 18 volt anyways. I usually charge these things up back after I use them again. But like these things here, these things go forever. It's amazing. It's funny because I hear people all the time talking about the Ryobi saws, and I say, oh, I wouldn't buy that piece of trash. It's got a drip through oiler and all this other stuff. Yeah, well, this thing's got a mechanical oiler, so it should be like a real life chainsaw, and it doesn't cut for crap. This thing here has a drip through. So basically, if you fill this thing up and you set it down at night, you're gonna have a huge puddle because all this thing does is drips through. So to combat that, let me throw my battery in the upper drawer, close this, and let me turn the light on for you. There we go, light's on now. So to combat this, I put a piece of cardboard down in the bottom of the box. Boop, there we go, has its own drawer full of oil, and eventually I'll just burn that cardboard, stick another piece in. Case closed. But just in case you think I'm totally down on Makita, charger has a USB port, which I've never used, but I could, and it plays music. Yeah. Way to get your priorities. Seriously, I haven't been this disappointed since I heard Kanye West sing Bohemian Rhapsody.